That is definitely among one of the more intriguing gameplays I've ever played, and so I am thankful for the chance to having played it online for a small amount of time in which the free trial was presented to try this out. It's way beyond midnight, easily 1, 2 o'clock in the morning or so, and we're into the 26th, and so I'm pretty sure that the free trial for Overwatch is more likely ended, or the expiration date in wanting to try and access the free download is already expired. So I'm not sure whether or not it's able to be played anymore at this point, but I'll know when I go to click into it tomorrow. If I can, hooray! If I can't, then hey, it was good while it lasted, you know? I'm not entirely sure where to start with this, so I think I'll just start at the beginning and just kind of work my way around based off of everything I was able to dabble with and what it is I enjoyed and didn't enjoy, and just try to give it from a general personal perspective, not so much it being a neutral perspective, but just from what it is I experienced, and then talking about it with a lot of different people that both love playing the game and hate the game and play the game for only specific reasons or select reasons. I can kind of give a general assessment here for how I want to give my synopsis to you, the viewers, because I know after doing Overwatch for the first time and then actually like enjoying it, but also noticing some pros and cons of my own right, trying to talk about this without, I guess, offending the audience or not saying what I really want to say involving the game or concerning Overwatch. I want to be careful about what it is I say or how I say it. It's not even that. I'm just gonna be blunt and honest about what I feel about the gameplay, and then you can take it as you will. Between now having played Paladins and now Overwatch, which was the spiritual and financially more sound successor or predecessor between the two, whichever one you want to look at it as the superior tier, probably Overwatch, I can give a good assessment also while I'm going along between the two and what my personal likes and dislikes are of that. So let's start with where we are here with Overwatch. Now, while I'm generally not one for going into MOBA-based gameplays or video games that have MOBA-like mechanics, I will give credit to Paladins and to Overwatch here, as they both did heavily draw my interest. Battleborn, while interesting, I could tell was easily a lesser knockoff of all three altogether, and so that will where I will drop the Battleborn reference. I will give the credit instead to the other two as the MOBA-based mechanics, and I guess in a sense also taking this from Team Fortress 2. I haven't had a chance to play a lot of that game, but when I'm over at my friend's house sometimes I do reference it, and we're able to bring up a video about what Team Fortress 2 does look like from many years ago, and it gave me a very good idea. And I'm looking at this, I'm just like, yeah, that's basically like Paladins back in the day. I could see why a whole lot of people would go into playing games like Paladins or Overwatch, because it's basically the same thing, and I'm really impressed by it. I do like the facet that you can be any character at almost any time with a good set team that you can come in with or work with a whole bunch of randoms, either in normal mode or in ranked mode, kind of reminiscent of Rainbow Six Siege. I like the fact that you can not necessarily have a main, but it forces you to have a counter meta mindset in focusing on how the opponent's going to come at you or come at your team, and then you can switch up your roles accordingly or work with said person at said times in order to either take out said opponent or complete said objective. I like that. And also, I like that you can switch characters on the fly, so you don't have to stick with any one or two characters at a time per whole session or per round for the entirety of the session that's presented. You can switch between any character at any time and go from being like an offense person to a tanker, or a tanker to a medic, or a medic to a flanker or an attacker again, or something like that. And it can rinse and repeat and allows you to switch your roles up accordingly at any time in order to correspond with each changing situation. That I like. That's a really nice feature that I can see was very becoming of this. Another good point I said I will like was also the different features of game modes that they have to work with, besides just hopping in and playing a random game for quick play. Because they got the quick play, they have arcade mode where you can play against the AI, or you can also do a custom mode game, or you can do a weekly event, or a game mode that is relevant to the weekly events. And there's also a weekly reset, so it also changes up what it is that's happening each week, depending upon whichever days the reset is given. Almost like a Destiny feel all of a sudden. But I can like that from what I've seen with the different game modes that they do give, and the different rules in place for each game mode, and the different feeling for each game mode. Some are faster, some are slower. And lastly, I'll say, in my opinion, I can definitely sense a good approval of character and team balancing, because everything about this gameplay feels very, very balanced. All the characters do more or less the same amount of DPS, or do more DPS at different rates, or do less at faster rates. The way of handling it for each character class is different, and it's made to each individual person, thus why they have such a huge roster outline for many different types of players and different types of playing styles itself. And for a nice topper on the balancing point is that it's not pay to play, and it's not pay to win. Because while you do have the ability to buy a lot of the loot boxes and stuff on the side that help with the leveling up process and spreading out your options of availability, it's not required or made any type of priority anywhere in any way, shape, or form in the gameplay. Everybody starts out the same by slowly grinding, and then after a while, I noticed that the presentation of the loot boxes, being able to buy them in order to speed it along, looks a lot more appealing after a while. And so I can see the slight faded, shadowy financial boost that Blizzard was able to do in that regard without having to actually bluntly point it out, like, hey, you need to buy this, hey, you need to buy that, in order to actually do good in this game, like Warframe or Destiny, where those quickly grew, or if not just bluntly established themselves as games where you have to continually invest money in it in order to accomplish anything satisfyingly significant.
You'll be fine.
And for the negatives to go into them, I'll just make it rather brief and quick to the point, because you're wondering, I'm sure, are there any negatives that Rodimus is going to go over? Yes, there are a couple that I have pointed out, which I'm surprised were made a very minor footnote of other more successful YouTubers that more than likely highly trebled into this area in doing their Overwatch ventures that probably were overlooked or not thought of at the time, and I'll get to that after the fact once I finish stating my perspective about this. What it is I found that was highly wrong with the game is the lack of context and the lack of the single-player campaign, and I'll explain why this is. Even if it's rather ignorantly obvious, I'm still going to state it because it's how I feel, so if anybody wants to try to contradict it, then you can fuck off. Anyway, with the vast amount of replayability, ingenuity, and almost like a second nature thought process in detailing this game, it surprises me and it disappoints me vastly that a lot of the lore and the backstory of the game is not here in the game, and it's not fully trying to explain why everybody here are fighting and why everybody here is fighting. Now, I can understand that there is probably some lore out now that explains about the whole context of what Overwatch was, or what it once was, and where all these characters do come from. That's all well and fine, and that's all peaches and cream. But why the hell is none of this in the video game itself that you're trying to pass off as a good game here? This, as well as the lack of a single-player campaign, is what irks me about this whenever I'm sitting at the main menu. Because, I mean, think about it. I'm just sitting here at the main menu. I don't really want to do multiplayer, but I would like to do a campaign or some blah-bitty-blah-bitty-blah. Like, I'm just wanting to go into campaign, see the backstory of said individual, you know what I'm saying? I want to get a feel for the guy, connect with the backstory, play a little of this and a little of that offline. But there's nothing for me to dabble with. There's nothing for my fingers to tip-tap, tiddly-tap dance around. It's just continual online multiplayer. And I bring these up because it's a necessary staple for a video game in order to have endured context or a sense of worth that goes beyond the general replayability of the game. Because I can easily state beyond a reasonable doubt that replayability of this game is not dead, and it won't be dead for a long time coming. Because with all the elements introduced in this game, replayability is vastly high as an understatement. On the contrary, should a person want something else to do aside from multiplayer but still want to do something else with the game, you got jack squat to work with on this. And I went through the trouble here in order to try to look up between various different online purchasing sites, between Amazon, Amazon Prime, Best Buy, H.H. Greg's, Bonanza, Craigslist, the whole shebang, or at least half of it if there's more online relevant sites in order to buy and ship shit from, which I don't know or probably don't know for various reasons. Anyway, it derives from my point. The point being is that I went through the trouble here in trying to see if there were been remastered collection sets of Overwatch that may consist or incorporate the various different types of lore or added availability of content and features that you can play in the gameplay. And from what it is I was able to find, there has not been anything of that sort. However, you do have these sets that are like the Overwatch Collector's Edition for PlayStation 4. That's about like $89 or $99. Basically like $100 fortune for each one of these things that's beyond the general $60 base drop for the Origins Edition set. That gives you the bells and whistles in terms of the disc, an art book, a little doodad here of Tracer on the mouse with a little butt being on the mouse butt thing. It looks pretty nice. And the rest of the art book here, a collector's edition book, some downloadable content in the rest of that for DLC, if that, and that's about it. But all the rest of the stuff here that I see in detail does not mention or reference all the rest of the stuff in here in terms of lore or other things that could incorporate more promotional sense of added gameplay beyond just multiplayer repetitively. Now, considering the huge amount of investment and time that Blizzard took into creating this game, I'm pretty aware that one or something had to give in the production outline of this video game or this project, the Overwatch project in full. And that's all fine. Something's always got to give, which comes back into place later on down the line. But what it is that's here is because it's lacking something that's very crucial in established content that allows revisiting to the video game or to the whole premise of the game that's there for you to look at, rather than it just being one specific aspect. I'm sure not a lot of people have problems going through and finding all the lore now, since it's online and various different things on YouTube, Twitch, stream, the whole, wherever the hell it is. But why the hell is it not in the game? That's the main problem here, because there are other games out there that do go through the process, yes, of putting all the lore out there on the world for people to find, but there's also Easter eggs and different types of very specific lore or things that are detailed lore that have to do with certain missions, person, place, things, or ideas in the video game that are there in the video game itself that you could happen to come across, but there's nothing like that here. And I'm rather I'm rather surprised that after a year of this video game's existence being out and being really established as a staple for general online video gaming lifestyle for either PlayStation or Xbox, however you be, as a staple for online play, that none of this has been brought to attention where they would want to release something or update the content where lore and added gameplays or added arcade mode, or no, not arcade mode, but a story or a campaign mode would be introduced in the gameplay or in an updated release of the game, where it could give you more of a backstory in the characters that you love playing so much that you don't have to go completely way out of the way in order to understand in the abnormal sense rather than the normal sense that was overlooked from the very beginning of what I'm stating. And again, this goes into why it is I took the time earlier in order to go over a couple of different online shipping websites in order to see if there have been any remasters sets or collector's edition sets of Overwatch that have been re-released or remanufactured or remastered, however I wish to word that, that have been coming out in the production line past the general Origins Edition base set when the game first came out, that could give more of an insight to this elucidation. But again, I don't see anything like this. And so while I see a lot of good things good with the game, there's also a very few things that are wrong with the game, and those one or two few things are actually a pretty big damn deal when you look at the big picture of the whole gameplay. And so that's all I really wanted to point out here was those two particular cons. And to finish what I was going at with this direction is that I know why the negative aspects of this game were not thought of as strongly or were more or less just highly overlooked all the same. And more or less, if I go to state it now, it's still going to be overlooked in the bigger picture of it all. And this dates back to a fact that I will actually give him credit on, is a facet that was stated by the Angry Joe Show, or Joe, in his previous documentation of the Overwatch video game experience with him and his friends, is because more or less of the huge reputation that Blizzard Entertainment has had over all these years, since 1991, more or less. You can also give a credit to Activision Blizzard, which was more or less the parent organization of it. But all the same, I go to this. I take it in tow to the same company of it, this being Blizzard Entertainment Inc. Now, they've had a number of past released video games that have been highly successful for story-driven plot, good character development, good character-based grinding mechanics, and badass, if not some freaking boss, CGI cutscenes that make the video game all to be damned. Like World of Warcraft, or StarCraft, or Hearthstone, or even, Diablo. Fucking Diablo. And all of those video games were astronomically successful beyond a reasonable doubt, yes. This one here for Overwatch, I'm starting to wonder if this video game was honestly given a free pass of an oversight. Because you're looking at a company that's made a huge record out of making very good games time after time after time after time. Yes. And so this one here, you take one look at the gameplay, bada bing, bada boom, pass it right on through. That's honestly what I think happened here, is because this video game was given a free pass. Granted, while there's a number of things right about this video game, there's also some things wrong about this video game that need to be brought into understanding for a general sense of balance, which was not understood or made aware of by even the most renowned Overwatch relevant YouTubers. And I'm highly surprised, and at the same time, in the modern day era of gaming and oblivious motherfuckers in this world, I'm not surprised at the sense of unawareness and obliviousness that a number of Overwatch YouTubers have had in playing this game to the point of no-lifing, where a very strong element is not noticeable. And it doesn't compute. Although after a whole year of this game being out, I doubt that it will compute at this point. I mean, heck, there are other YouTubers that would take the sense to notice many good things and the the possible few or many bad things about a gameplay in order to have a better sense of relativity and a better sense of general comfortability in wanting to be associated with the game or community or communities that are associated with said game. Easy come, easy go. And so, in short, that's honestly what I feel happened. Is that Overwatch, when this thing first came out in 2016, is that this game was given a complete, full free pass by a whole lot of critics out there. And everybody let this happen because it was made by a very prominent and prosperous gaming company that you've had no reason to give a shady eye towards. And that's all well and fine. But at the same time, you want to actually take the time to sit there and also think about what it is that could be wrong with a game that has everything supposedly right with it, and it's the picture perfect game. Not everything can be all picture perfect here. This year-long argument's going to still keep going long after I give my own personal take on this, but I'm just going to make it rather concise and straight to the point in order to allow a rather educated sense of where both games stand in the very comparably similar, if not mirror opposite gameplay that they both present to the table of the MOBA universe. Now, I've personally, having played them both now for a good amount of time and both time cacked in, I will state now I do have a better educated sense of the gameplay, and I will wholeheartedly say that yes, Paladins does seem like a knockoff of Overwatch. However, I strongly believe that Paladins more likely came first in the production outline before most of, or if not all of, Overwatch's character concepts were even created. So I'm pretty sure that one stole from the other one in more than one way in a prosperous sense, which gives more or one diverse perspective in what one gameplay offers that the other gameplay does not. And that's another thing that I feel that does fuel the huge differentiation in why the Overwatch players and Paladins players, or both communities respectively, are just at ends at trying to reach a general norm, in the fact that both companies did take something from the other in order to make something that was a mirror opposite of itself in multiple different ways, but managed to succeed or fail in different ways that was made up for in a different sense by the other competitor. All personal feelings aside, I feel this, in particular, unbiased perspective is the true perspective that needs to be considered when making an investment, or investment of time or money rather, in either or personal online MOBA adventure. Now, for those that don't have Overwatch or can't get to Overwatch, I would strongly suggest, yes, to go play Paladins. Paladins is literally one notch down from the whole overlining amazement that is Overwatch. Yes, I will say that Overwatch is the better of the two. However, people also need to realize that something so amazing cannot easily be acquired as one may assume. And while that is unfortunate at times, it is understandably necessary to respect the fact of people's choices in wanting to do either or. And if they can't do one, then you're going to get the next best thing. And the next best thing from Overwatch is going to be likely Paladins. Known generally as, well, the poor man's Overwatch. Yes, it is a very rightfully so to name it as such, as a catchy name, because this is a free-to-play video game experience that is essentially, it's the free version of Overwatch. And it is rightfully so that people who do want to play Overwatch but can't afford it would like to play this, and should respectably be given the right to play it. Unfortunately, though, the Paladins gameplay, in a sense, is a pay-to-win video game adventure, where you can still gradually grind and get what you want out of the gameplay. There are some points that do heavily want to push the fact of investing money into the gameplay in order to get a lot of things out of the gameplay much faster than you would anticipate from just generally grinding in the numerous game modes that are also presented in that video game, just as they would be in Paladins. That in Overwatch. And so while Overwatch would likely be the initial push to want to have an investment in, the Paladin's choice should still be on the table for those that can't afford it, and it should rightfully be so, because by being good in Paladins, you already pretty much are aware of in full what you're going to get in the full deal, that's going to be the Overwatch grind. So, in summarization for either or for the impatient viewer, I'm saying yes to getting Paladins if you can't get Overwatch. If you can get Overwatch, just get Overwatch. That's all there is to it. I'm not saying one game is better than the other, but I am saying that one is more readily available than the other one. That's all there is to it. In short, would I suggest others to buy it, and will I buy it? The answer to both is yes. However, I don't honestly believe that the game in total when it first came out and all that stuff, I can believe it being a 50, 60, or in some random ass cases even an $80, $100 drop, yes. But after all this time, it's still $60 to play the whole game with all the stuff in there, and you still have to buy the added bells and the whistles anyway. Oh, come on now. The game, after all this time, the value is still strong, yes, but it's not worth $60 and higher at this rate in order to get that thing. I would preferably, for my own self, to take my own advice, and for other players out there, to just wait until there's either a store, a discount thing that goes on the PlayStation Store, or if you can find it at a reasonable price at a GameStop, EB Games, wherever it is that you may do your normal shopping thing, and just start there. Because unless you were one of the few people that probably bought the game when it first came out and you have all the normal bells and the whistles that came to it at this point, there's likely, unless there's another remastered set that will come out that actually has everything in it, and not just an added collector's edition or a super mega ultra platinum condition, whatever the hell it is they want to do in upgrading the tier system with releasing re-edited or remastered edition sets of video games and past video games that have been out. Whether or not they want to actually incorporate more bang for your buck or less, that you have to pay attention to in reading the box content and details in full to make sure you're getting as much possible as you can without having to systematically invest more in the gameplay by probably buying this and that at the store in addition to what it is that you wanted to buy for the game, or just get the DLC packs or whatever it is they may have at PlayStation Store to simplify the whole deal. Done deal. That's all there is to it, my friends. Overall, my whole experience on Overwatch was a really monumentally memorable experience, to say the least, and I do wish for many more if the time and the setting may be so kind. I will see if I can try to pick up a copy of this in the future, if it is made available so, and we'll take it from there. Until then, viewers, thank you for tuning in. As always, my thanks.
All right.